Hello everyone. From this video, you will improve your English, your listening skills, and you will enjoy a powerful life story. Listen carefully. This is the story of a boy named Aarav. Aarav was the kind of boy many people did not notice. He was quiet. He was simple. He never tried to show off, and maybe that was the reason people ignored him so easily. He lived in a small house with his parents and his younger sister. The house was old, the paint was peeling from the walls, and the roof leaked every time it rained hard. But Aarav never complained about it. His father worked as a mechanic in a small workshop near the bus stand. His hands were always covered with grease, and his clothes always smelled like oil and dust. His mother stitched blouses and school uniforms from home to earn a little money. Life was not easy in their house. Some days they had enough. Some days they had to count every rupee. Aarav understood all this, even if he never said it loudly. He had one dream. He wanted to do something big one day. Not because he wanted fame, not because he wanted attention, but because he wanted people to finally look at him and say, yes, he made it. At school, Aarav was not a top student. He was not the fastest. He was not the loudest. He was just there, sitting quietly in the second-last bench, doing his work, answering only when someone asked him something. Some students thought he was boring. Some thought he was weak, and some simply forgot he existed. During group activities, no one asked for his opinion. During class discussions, teachers often picked other students first. Even his classmates sometimes joked, "Aarav will not talk unless the whole world becomes silent." Everyone laughed. Aarav smiled a little and looked away. But inside, those words stayed with him. One afternoon, the school principal announced a district-level speaking competition. The winner would get a certificate, a cash prize, and a scholarship opportunity. The whole class became excited. Students started whispering, "Maybe I should try. I think I can win this." One of Aarav's friends laughed and said, "This is not for everyone. You need confidence for this." Another boy looked at Aarav and said, "Aarav? He will not even speak on stage." The boys around him laughed again. Aarav did not answer. He just looked at the notice board. The words on the paper kept shining in his mind. Speaking competition, scholarship, stage, audience, prize. He did not know why, but something inside him moved. That afternoon, when he returned home, his mother noticed that he was unusually quiet. She asked, "What happened?" Aarav put his school bag down and said softly, "There's a competition at school." His mother smiled. "That sounds nice." Aarav sat near the door. "I want to take part." His mother paused for a moment. Then she asked carefully, "Do you think you are ready?" That question stayed in the air. Aarav looked down. "I do not know." That night he could not sleep properly. He kept thinking about the competition, about the stage, about the people laughing, about the possibility of failing in front of everyone. He also thought about something else. What if he actually won? What if people finally stopped ignoring him? That thought felt strange and a little dangerous. The next morning, he went to school early. The notice board was still there. The form was still available. A few students were standing nearby talking confidently about their chances. Aarav stood at a distance and watched them. Then, after a long pause, he walked forward and picked up the form. One boy noticed him and smirked. "Are you serious?" Aarav did not raise his voice. He just said, "Yes." The boy laughed. "You can try, but don't expect much." Aarav folded the form carefully and walked away. For the first time in many years, he had done something that felt scary, and it had also felt right. But he had no idea how hard the next few weeks would become. The moment Aarav submitted the form, he thought the hardest part was over. He was wrong. The hardest part was only beginning. The competition would take place in 3 weeks, which sounded like enough time, but for Aarav it felt very short. He had never spoken in front of a large audience before, not in school, not in family gatherings, not even in front of his friends. He could speak normally in small conversations, but when many people looked at him, his mind went blank. Still, he did not cancel his name. Every evening after school, he stood in front of the mirror in his small room and tried to speak. At first, his voice was low, then it cracked, then he stopped in the middle. He would sit down, take a deep breath, and try again. "Good evening, everyone," he would begin. Then he would stop. "Good evening, everyone," again and again. His younger sister, Mira, often stood at the door and watched him. One evening she said, "Baya, you speak like you were fighting with the words." Aarav gave a weak smile. "Maybe I am." Mira laughed. "Then win the fight." Those words made him smile for real, but not everyone in the house was supportive. His father was tired after long working hours, and when he saw Aarav practicing instead of helping around the house, he became worried. One night he said, "Aarav, this competition is fine, but do not waste too much time. You still need to think about your future." Aarav replied quietly, "This is for my future." His father looked at him for a moment and said, "Then make sure it is worth it." That line hurt him a little, but it also pushed him. So he practiced more. He wrote his speech on old notebook pages. He read it again and again. He recorded his voice on his phone and listened to it at night. When he heard his own voice, he did not like it at first. It sounded too slow, too uncertain, too soft. But slowly, day by day, he began improving. His words became clearer. His pauses became better. His eyes stayed up instead of looking down. Even his mother noticed the change. She would often bring tea and stand quietly at the door while he practiced. One evening she said, "Your voice sounds stronger now." Aarav looked at her and asked, "Really?" She nodded. "Not only stronger, more honest." That line stayed with him. More honest. Maybe that was the secret. He stopped trying to sound perfect. He started trying to sound real. A week before the competition, the school held a small practice round. All the selected students were asked to give a short speech in front of the teacher panel. Aarav's turn came near the end. By then he was already sweating. His hands were cold. His mouth felt dry. He walked to the front and looked at the teachers. One of them smiled kindly. Another checked his notes without looking up. Aarav took a breath and began. His first 2 lines were shaky. Then he stopped. His mind went blank. The room became very quiet. He could hear his own heartbeat. One student in the back whispered, "He is freezing." Another one laughed softly. Aarav's face turned red. For a moment he wanted to leave the room, but then he remembered all the nights he had practiced, all the mirror speeches, all the recordings, all the times he had chosen to continue. He swallowed hard and started again. This time his voice was not perfect, but it was steady enough. He finished the practice speech with effort. When it ended, there was no big applause, just a few polite nods. One teacher wrote something on a paper. That was it. On the way home, Aarav felt low, very low. He thought, maybe they were right, maybe I am not made for this. That night he sat alone on the terrace. The sky was dark, the wind was cool. He held the competition speech in his hand, but he could not read a single line. Then his father came up slowly and sat beside him. For a long time, neither of them spoke. Then his father asked, "Are you thinking of quitting?" Aarav did not answer right away. His father looked at the sky and said, "Listen carefully. If you quit now, everyone will forget this in a week. But if you keep going, You will remember this moment for the rest of your life." Aarav lowered his head. His father continued, "People may ignore you today. That does not mean they know your value." Those words reached him deeply. That night, Aarav made one decision. He would not go to the competition to prove them wrong. He would go to prove himself right. The day of the competition arrived. The hall was full. Students from different schools were sitting in rows. Teachers, parents, and judges were all there. The stage looked bigger than Aarav had imagined. As he stood in the back with the other participants, he could feel his heartbeat in his throat. One of the boys who had laughed at him earlier walked past and said, "Good luck, you will need it." Aarav looked at him and replied quietly, "I know." But this time his voice did not shake. That surprised even him. When his name was called, he walked to the stage slowly. Every step felt heavy. Then he stopped in the center, looked at the audience, and waited. For a second, the hall was silent. Then he began. "Good afternoon, everyone." His voice was calm, not loud, not dramatic, just calm. He looked straight ahead and continued. "Today I want to speak about something simple, something many people forget. Sometimes the people who look quiet are the ones carrying the heaviest thoughts." The hall became still. Aarav kept going. He spoke about being ignored. He spoke about being judged too early. He spoke about how silence does not mean weakness. It means some people are fighting in ways others cannot see. His voice grew stronger with every line. He was not trying to impress anyone now. He was speaking from the heart, and the heart has a different kind of power. Halfway through the speech, he looked at the crowd and saw his father. He had come without telling anyone. His work shirt was still dusty from the garage, and his face looked tired, but his eyes were full of pride. That sight gave Aarav one more push. He finished with the line, "Do not ignore people just because they are quiet. Sometimes the ones who are ignored today are the ones who will surprise you tomorrow." The hall stayed silent for one long second. Then came the applause. Not one or two claps, real applause, strong applause. Aarav stood there breathing slowly, almost unable to believe it. When the judges announced the result, his name came first. He had won. For a moment, he did not move. Then the reality hit him. He had actually won. His eyes filled with tears. His classmates who had laughed at him before now looked shocked. One of them said under his breath, "He really did it." A teacher came forward and shook his hand. His father stood up from the audience, his chest full of pride. After the event, many people came to congratulate him. Some of the same students who had ignored him before now smiled and called his name. But Aarav did not feel angry anymore. He just felt calm, because the prize was not the biggest part of the day. The biggest part was the journey, the nights he practiced, the moments he wanted to quit, the silence he carried, the courage he found. That evening when he returned home, his mother was waiting at the door. She saw the certificate in his hand and understood everything without asking. Aarav gave her the paper. She looked at it, then at him, and smiled through tears. His father placed a hand on his shoulder and said, "Today you did not just win a competition, you won yourself." Aarav smiled. Then he looked around the small house that had seen all his struggles. The broken wall, the old fan, the simple kitchen. It all looked different now, not because it had changed, but because he had changed. Life lesson. People may ignore you when you are silent. They may doubt you when you are starting slowly. They may laugh before they understand your strength. But hard work has a way of speaking for itself. So keep going, even when nobody notices, because one day The same people who ignored you may be the ones clapping for you.